Imagine stepping back over 2,000 years. Just close your eyes for a second and picture that ancient landscape. Golden sunrises burning over mist-covered mountains, deep flowing rivers, and these incredibly bustling ancient towns. In this world of Sangam Tamalakam, nature totally wasn't just some background scenery. It was deeply, deeply intertwined with the human experience. The poets of the Sangam Age actually transformed the birds around them into living, breathing symbols of love, joy, heroism, and sorrow. They discovered a language completely beyond words. It's a really profound question, right? I mean, think about it. If you were a poet over 2 millennia ago, without any of the modern storytelling tools we rely on today, how would you capture the absolute extremes of human emotion? Well, the Sangam poets did something brilliant. They looked up. They used the cries, the songs, and the flights of birds to capture the deepest, most unspoken feelings. They listened to nature, and in return, nature gave them a winged vocabulary to perfectly capture the human heart. Section 1. Matters of the heart. Love, longing, and secrets. Okay, let's dive into our first winged messenger, the Enril bird. Now, to the Sangam poets, absolutely nothing embodied the gut-wrenching pain of sorrow quite like this bird. They were believed to be literally inseparable from their mates. Picture this, a pair of these elegant birds flying across a gorgeous crimson sunset, only to be suddenly ripped apart by a violent storm. The bird left behind would mourn fiercely, its incredibly melancholic cry just echoing into the night. And you see this captured perfectly in the ancient text, the Kurun Talgai. That mournful cry wasn't just a sound. It literally became the echoing voice of the Sangam heroine. Imagine her standing there on a moonlit beach, ocean waves crashing in slow motion, just waiting in absolute agony for an absent lover. The Aniral's cry was basically her own heartbreak, completely projected out into the wild. But on the flip side, if the andril was the sound of pure heartbreak, the kuil, or the Indian cuckoo, was the sound of awakening. Picture a dreamlike golden morning in the misty Kurinji forests. When the kuil sang from a blossoming tree, it stirred these really deep memories. It was nature's way of whispering that spring and love had officially arrived. So that sweet melody in the grove, it totally wasn't just background noise. For the ancient Tamils, hearing the kuil was this profound psychological trigger. I mean, it instantly awakened this intense romantic anticipation in waiting hearts. It was literally the sound of hope and new beginnings. All right, transitioning from the wild forest right into the warmth of the home, we meet the kili, the parrot. Now, this wasn't some distant bird high up in the sky. It was a fiercely loyal companion. It was deeply trusted with a young woman's unspoken romantic secrets. The kili was, the ultimate confidant who listened when literally no one else would. What's so fascinating here is how the Natranai reveals this incredibly intimate ancient practice of pet keeping. Imagine a young woman sitting in her courtyard, literally whispering her deepest, most hidden words of love to a brilliantly colored parrot perched right on her arm. She's teaching it her secrets, turning it into a winged messenger ready to fly through the ancient villages. Section 2. The Pulse of the Land, Harbingers of Rain and Harvest. So, stepping out of that intimate, emotional world, let's look at the grand, sweeping landscapes where birds were the actual lifeblood of the land. Just picture this massive, cinematic moment. Heavy, dark monsoon clouds are rolling in over these lush mountain valleys. The air is just thick with anticipation. And then, bam, the tension breaks. The male, the majestic peacock, spreads its feathers in this spectacular, joyful dance to celebrate the coming rain. The Kalathagai captures that exact, spine-tingling moment. The peacock dancing right before the downpour was the ultimate image of life's renewal. And the poets actually equated this radiant happiness and striking beauty to the joyous spirit and stunning presence of ancient Tamil women. It's just a beautiful comparison. Now, from those mountainous rains, let's follow the water all the way down to the vast emerald rice fields. Down here, we find the serene, majestic presence of the Narai, the white stork. The rule was simple. Where the Narai walked, prosperity followed. It was the absolute guardian of the wetlands. Basically, a living, breathing promise of abundant water and agricultural wealth that sustained the entire Sangam world. So when a poet wrote about a stork casually walking through the fields in the Ayangu Nuru Nuru, They weren't just painting a pretty picture for us. They were pointing to a hardcore economic reality. That stork walking through the water proved the existence of highly advanced ancient irrigation canals and a massive, thriving agricultural economy in the Marathon landscape.
Section 3. Grace and Glory, the Extremes of Ancient Society.
Now, what's really fascinating is how the ancient Tamils embraced the absolute extremes of life. They had this profoundly balanced worldview. On one hand, they deeply cherished the soft vulnerability and domestic warmth represented by the gentle parrot. But at the exact same time, they completely worshipped the ruthless, driving intensity and fierce strength of the hawk. It's a stunning emotional contrast. Let's talk about that hawk, the Parundu. It ruled the skies with the exact same authority that Tamil warriors ruled the battlefield. Imagine this bird diving through the clouds with deadly precision and relentless speed. It perfectly embodied those ancient kings riding into combat, their weapons gleaming in the harsh sunlight. It was literally the ultimate symbol of heroic valor and striking armies. In fact, in the martial poetry of the Purananuru, comparing a warrior's strength or an army's formation to the dark wings of a hawk wasn't just some casual metaphor. No way. It was the absolute highest compliment a soldier could ever receive. It meant you were swift, lethal, and completely unstoppable. But okay, let's contrast that intense battlefield violence with something completely different. Breathtaking, slow-motion elegance. Enter the Anam, the swan. Gliding effortlessly across still, lotus-filled lakes, the swan was the absolute highest expression of purity, grace, and noble beauty in ancient Tamil culture. They even had a specific phrase for it, the Anam walk. That graceful, unhurried movement of a swan actually became the eternal gold standard for describing how a Sangam noblewoman carried herself through the palace gardens. It perfectly captured that sense of flowing, poetic dignity that words alone can barely do justice to. Section 4. Ancient Wisdom and Ecological Legacy, the Science Behind the Poetry. So, we've talked a ton about poetry and emotion throughout this explainer, but here is what I find truly mind-blowing. These poetic symbols, they were actually rooted in incredibly precise scientific observation. From the Antral's lifelong unity to the Pardindu's fierce valor, the Sangam poets literally constructed a highly sophisticated literary language out of the natural world. They didn't just look at nature. They analyzed it, categorized it, and wove it right into human society. Legendary scholars like U.V. Swaminatha Iyer and M. Vardarajan realized a massive truth about all this. These poems aren't just wild poetic imagination. They are actual, vital historical and biological records. The ancient Tamils possessed this profound ecological knowledge, documenting the exact behaviors, habitats, and seasonal patterns of these animals centuries before modern biology was even a thing. And guys, here is the absolute most astonishing fact of all. While we have only explored 7 birds in our journey today, Sangam literature actually documents over 60 distinct bird species. Over 60. And they did it with a literal museum-quality, observational accuracy. It is just a staggering testament to a civilization that lived in total harmony with its environment. 2 millennia ago, the ancient Tamils looked up at the sky and saw love, war, prosperity, and sorrow reflected in the wings of birds. They listened deeply to the world around them. So I want to leave you with this thought. If they could read the language of nature so clearly back then, what are we failing to hear today? Thanks so much for exploring this with me. Keep looking up and keep listening.